Brother got my apartment key made without asking me. Not a copy. He took my actual key, went to the hardware store, and had a duplicate made while I was at work. I found out because he left my original key on the kitchen counter with a little sticky note that said, "Made a spare, just in case." That was a Tuesday. By Friday, I had already started looking at apartments. Let me back up. My name is Tara, and I'm 31 years old. I'm a UX designer, fully remote, and for the past 3 years I've been living in my parents' house in Glendale, California. Not because I couldn't afford to leave. I want to be clear about that. I make good money. I moved back after my grandmother passed away and my mom went through a really dark period. She stopped cooking, stopped leaving the house, barely got out of bed some mornings. My dad travels for work 4 days a week, so there was nobody there. I came home to help, and then I just stayed. I told myself it was temporary, 6 months maybe. Help mom get back on her feet, save a little extra money, then find my own place. You know how those plans go. 3 years later, I was paying $1,400 a month in rent below market, but still rent, money that actually exchanged hands, plus half the utilities, plus groceries most weeks, plus the occasional, "Tara, can you cover this?" that I usually just said yes to without thinking too hard. I'd also spent about $11,000 converting the sunroom into a proper home office, insulation, a mini split for the heat, a standing desk, proper lighting, 2 monitors, a good chair, all of it out of my own pocket because I needed a real workspace and the sunroom was just collecting old holiday decorations and a broken elliptical anyway. That sunroom became my whole professional life. I took client calls in there. I had a whiteboard on the wall covered in sticky notes and user flow diagrams. My noise-canceling headphones lived on a hook by the door. It was mine, not just in the sentimental sense, but in the real financial sense. I built it. My brother Derek moved back home about a year after I did. He's 26, works in sales, and had been living with roommates in Pasadena until one of them got a girlfriend who needed a room and the whole arrangement fell apart. He showed up with 4 boxes and a mattress, and my parents gave him the guest room without a second thought. I didn't mind. I liked having him around at first. We'd eat dinner together, watch stuff on TV. It felt kind of like being kids again. He's funny when he wants to be. But Derek has a specific quality that I can only describe as effortless entitlement. It's not mean-spirited. He's not a villain. He just genuinely deeply believes that things should work out for him, and when they don't, he adjusts the world around him until they do. He borrows things without asking. He eats food you were saving. He makes plans that involve your time without checking first. And he always seems slightly confused when anyone points this out, like you're the one being unreasonable. The key thing was the first real sign. I brought it up at dinner, calmly I thought, and he shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad have a spare. I just thought it made sense for me to have one too." My dad nodded like that was a perfectly rational statement. My mom said, "He has a point, honey." I let it go. A few weeks later, Derek mentioned offhandedly that he was thinking about starting a podcast. Some business and mindset thing. He'd already bought a microphone. "Where are you going to record?" I asked. He looked at me. I figured the sunroom would be good. Great acoustics. "I work in the sunroom," I said. "That's my office." "You're not in there all day," he said. "That's my office." "You're not in there all day," he said. "I'm in there during work hours, which are most of the day." He made a face like I'd said something unreasonable and dropped it. But I noticed him start wandering in during my lunch breaks to check it out, touching my equipment, spinning in my chair. I mentioned it to my mom and she said, "He's just excited about his project, don't make it a whole thing." So I didn't make it a whole thing. The podcast didn't happen. Something came up with the microphone being the wrong kind or something. I don't remember the exact excuse. But the idea of the sunroom as a shared space had apparently taken root in my family's mind without my consent. 2 months after the podcast conversation, my parents sat me down after dinner. My dad started. He said Derek had been thinking about trying to work from home more, and the guest room was too small and dark for a comfortable workspace, and the sunroom had all that natural light, and the setup was already there. I knew where this was going before he finished the sentence. "We thought," my mom said carefully, "that you two could share it, take turns maybe, or divide the hours." I stared at them. "He's trying to grow professionally," my dad said. "We think it would be good for him to have a real space to work." "I built that space," I said. "I spent $11,000 turning that room into an office." "We know," my mom said, "and we really appreciate that. But it's still technically part of the house. technically part of the house. 3 years of rent, 3 years of groceries, $11,000 in renovations, technically part of the house. So, I said slowly, my workspace, which I paid to build and pay to use as part of my rent, should be split with Derek, because he wants to work from home more. We're not saying it's ideal, my dad said. We're just asking you to be flexible. I nodded. I said I'd think about it. They looked relieved, like the hard part was over. It wasn't. I went back to the sunroom and I sat in my chair and I looked at the whiteboard and the hooks and the mini split I'd had installed, and I thought about what flexible meant in this family. It meant me. It always meant me. Flexible was another word for available, and available meant that whatever I had built or earned or set aside for myself was considered a shared resource as soon as someone else wanted it. I pulled up Zillow. Not seriously, I told myself. Just to look. There was a one-bedroom in Burbank, 11 minutes away, $1,950 a month. In-unit laundry, parking included, second floor with south-facing windows. I requested a showing for the next morning. The apartment was smaller than I remembered one-bedrooms being, or maybe I'd just gotten used to a whole house, but it was quiet and clean and the light in the afternoon was genuinely beautiful. The landlord was a soft-spoken guy named Mr. Ose, who showed me how the bathroom tiles had just been rerouted and pointed out proudly that the closets had been recently reorganized with built-ins. I applied before I got back to my car. I got approved 3 days later. I didn't say anything at home. I went to work in my sunroom. I ate dinner with my family. I helped my mom pick out a new shower curtain at Target that weekend. I acted completely normal, because in a way, I felt completely normal. There was no rage, no dramatic confrontation building in my chest, just a quiet, clear decision that had been made, and now I was walking toward it. My move-in date was 2 weeks out. I started quietly migrating things. A box of books here, a bag of off-season clothes there, tucked into my car on my way to run errands. My good cookware, my record player, the things I actually cared about. The week before I moved, Derek knocked on the sunroom door and came in without waiting for an answer. "So did you think about the schedule thing?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, not turning around from my monitor. "I've been thinking about it. I was thinking I'd take mornings since I have early calls, and you could have afternoons. Or we could alternate days. I drew up a little draft thing if you want to see it." He'd made a schedule. "For my office. I'll let you know," I said. Moving day was a Saturday. I'd hired 2 movers, $320 for 3 hours, which I'd budgeted weeks before, and they arrived at 8 in the morning while my parents were still asleep. Derek had stayed out late the night before and wasn't home yet. I took my monitors. I took my chair. I took the hook off the door where my headphones lived. I took the small rug I'd bought, the lamp with the warm bulb, the whiteboard, every sticky note on it. I unscrewed the shelf I'd installed above the desk. I left the mini-split because that was genuinely part of the house. I left the insulation. I left the room clean. By 10:15, my car and the moving truck were loaded. I left a note on the kitchen counter. It said, "I found my own place. I've moved out. I'll call you this week." I left the sunroom key on the hook. Then I drove to Burbank. I was sitting on my new living room floor, no furniture yet, just boxes, eating a breakfast burrito from the place across the street when my phone started ringing. "Mom." I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Then my dad called. Then my mom again. I finished my burrito. I listened to the voicemails. My mom's voice was high and tight and she kept saying she didn't understand. That I should have talked to them, that this wasn't how family handled things. My dad's was shorter and stiffer. He said we needed to discuss this and I should call him back. I texted both of them, "I'm safe. I'll call tomorrow, just need the day to settle in." I did not call the next day. I called the day after when I felt ready. My mom cried. I understood that. Genuinely. She said she felt blindsided, that she thought things were fine, that she wished I had said something. I told her gently that I had said something. I said it when Derek took a copy of my key without asking. And I said it when I told them the sunroom was my workspace, and I said it clearly when I explained the money I'd put into it. She was quiet for a long time. My dad got on the phone and said, "You have to understand we were just trying to help Derek get settled." "I know," I said, "and I was helping this whole family get settled for 3 years. I paid rent. I paid utilities. I paid for the sunroom out of pocket. I was glad to do it. But when helping me out meant taking something I'd built, that was the line." He didn't have a response to that. Derek texted me 4 days later. The text said, "Hey, kinda messed up how you left. Mom's been crying." I read it twice and put my phone down. He texted again the next morning. "Also heads up, that room has zero insulation now that your stuff is gone. It's freezing." I didn't respond to either message. What I found out later, through my mom and one of our gradually returning to normal phone calls, was that without my $1,400 in monthly rent and the utility splits, the house finances had gotten genuinely tight. My dad had to cancel a credit card he'd been carrying a balance on, and they pushed back some planned maintenance on the HVAC. Derek's contribution was minimal. He paid a small token amount that barely covered his food costs. The household had been built around my income more than anyone had acknowledged out loud, apparently including my parents. My mom said it in a way that I think was meant to make me feel guilty. "We didn't realize how much we'd come to depend on you," she said. "I know," I said. "That's kind of the point." There was a silence, and then she said quietly, "I should have listened when you said the sunroom was yours." That was the most I got. It was enough. I've been in my apartment for 4 months now. My living room has actual furniture in it, a couch I picked out myself, a coffee table I found at an estate sale in Silver Lake for $40, a gallery wall I've been slowly adding to with prints I actually like. The sunroom stuff is rebuilt in my second bedroom, which is mine, which no one else has a key to, which no one is going to decide should be shared because someone else wants it. I work with the window open when it's nice out. I can hear kids from the elementary school up the street around 3 in the afternoon. My neighbor on the left bakes something on Sunday mornings that smells incredible through the wall. My mom and I talk twice a week now. She asked last month if I ever thought about coming back, and I said no. She said she understood. I think she's starting to, actually. Derek did eventually set up a podcast space in the guest room. He sent me a photo of it, a moving blanket hung on the wall for soundproofing, the microphone on a dinner tray, a lamp pointed at the wall to diffuse the light. It looked resourceful, honestly, like someone who had figured out how to make do with what he had. I looked at the photo for a while and thought, yeah, now you're getting it. The bank is closed. It's been closed for 4 months, and for the first time in a long time, everything I have is mine. I used to think patience was the same thing as strength. I stayed quiet when Derek took a copy of my key. I stayed quiet when he wandered into my office and spun in my chair. I stayed quiet at that dinner table when my parents asked me to be flexible about the space I had spent $11,000 building. I kept telling myself that keeping the peace was the mature thing to do, that pushing back would make me the difficult one, the selfish one. But there's a version of patience that isn't strength at all. It's just slow erosion. And I'd been eroding for a long time before I finally noticed. What I've learned, looking back at all of it, is that the people around me weren't bad people. My parents genuinely didn't realize how much they'd built their household around my income and my willingness to say yes. Derek genuinely didn't think of himself as someone taking advantage. He thought of himself as someone making reasonable requests. None of them sat down and decided to use me. They just kept asking, and I kept saying yes, and eventually the yes became the expectation, and the expectation became the assumption, and the assumption became the arrangement. And arrangements are very hard to renegotiate once everyone's comfortable. That's the thing nobody tells you about being the capable one in a family. It's not that people are out to get you, it's that your capability becomes invisible infrastructure. Like a bridge everyone drives over without thinking about who built it or what holds it up. You just become load-bearing quietly, over time, until the day you step back and suddenly everyone's asking why the structure is shaking. My leaving wasn't an act of anger. I want to be honest about that. By the time I was sitting on my new living room floor in Burbank eating a breakfast burrito while my phone buzzed on the carpet next to me, I wasn't furious. I was just done. Done in the calm, clear way that comes after you finally told yourself the truth about a situation and stopped arguing with it. The truth was simple. I had built something, literally and financially, and the moment someone else wanted it, it stopped being mine. And if that was the rule, I needed to go somewhere the rules were different. There's something that happens when you stop making yourself smaller to keep everyone else comfortable. It's not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with a speech or a confrontation. It just shows up one Tuesday afternoon when you're unpacking boxes and you realize your shoulders have been up near your ears for 3 years, and now they're not. Tara from 6 months ago would have drafted a careful, diplomatic email about the sunroom schedule. Tara now just doesn't live there anymore. I think what I finally understood is that your energy, your money, your space, those things go where you direct them. For 3 years, I directed mine toward a household that kept redistributing it without my consent, not out of cruelty, just out of habit and comfort, and the assumption that I would continue. When I stopped, the whole picture became visible to everyone at once, including my parents. My mom said, "I should have listened when you said the sunroom was yours." That sentence took a long time to arrive. But it arrived. You can't force that kind of clarity in other people. You can only stop participating in arrangements that cost you more than they give back. And then watch what happens when the math becomes undeniable.